like a backstage pass to the world of fly fishing travel. This is Waypoints, the podcast of destination angling. News and events, helpful travel tips, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from some of the most seasoned and experienced names in fishing travel. Waypoints is presented by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, the industry's #1 specialty travel company and the fly shop for the world of fly fishing. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered for your next fishing adventure. And now your host, author, photographer, and world traveler, Jim Klug.
Today on Waypoints, we're joined by a true legend, a man whose name is etched into the very fabric of saltwater fly fishing history. Chico Fernández has been casting, teaching, innovating, and inspiring anglers for more than 6 decades. From the early days of pioneering big game fly fishing in Florida, to writing some of the most enduring books on bonefish and redfish, to designing flies that are still tied and fished around the world, Chico's story is one of passion, persistence, and a deep, lifelong connection to the sport. Born in Havana, Cuba, Chico and his family fled the island in 1959 and landed in Florida. Chico arrived in Miami with little more than a fly rod, a jazz record collection, and a deep love for fishing that would go on to shape the rest of his life. What has followed has been a remarkable journey, from late nights casting for tarpon under Keys bridges with a handful of equally obsessed fishing buddies, to helping to find modern saltwater tackle, to fishing some of the most remote and exotic destinations on the planet. Along the way, he's become not only a student of the sport, but one of its great teachers and most respected ambassadors. Now in his mid-80s, Chico is still chasing fish, still teaching, and still sharing the soul of fly fishing with anyone who's lucky enough to cross paths with him. Today, we're diving into his story, his roots, his travels, his love for the cast, and the philosophy that's guided him through a lifelong journey in angling. This is a special one, and we're beyond excited for our conversation with the legendary Chico Fernández. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Waypoints is sponsored by Patagonia. To bring their gear to life, Patagonia is motivated by relentless curiosity and a passion for the wild. They evaluate hundreds of materials, build dozens of prototypes, and spend seasons punishing them in the world's most extreme conditions. The work is the guide, and Patagonia never tires of exploring, learning, and improving. Be sure to check out Patagonia's new Swift Current waders, repatterned and redesigned for bulk reduction, reduced seam stress, increased maneuverability, and improved repairability. Made from recycled materials without intentionally added PFAS, Swift Current waders move better in and out of the water. Chico Fernández, it is an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
The honor is all ours to have you here on Waypoints.
Thank you.
I want to start at the beginning, as podcasts often do. But tell us, do you remember the first time you held a fishing rod in your hands as a young man growing up in Cuba?
Let me go further back. We started fishing. I came from a family of fishermen. My father fished, my uncle fished, everybody fished. And there were no rods. At the time, we didn't have any money. It was yo-yos, hand line. The line was cotton, very bright white. So my father would dye the color brown with the roots of red mangrove trees. So we fished with that. Bottom fishing with bait, a piece of lead to get to the bottom, get mangrove snapper, grunts, yellow grunts, white grunt, small little grouper, Nassau grouper, black grouper, red grouper, whatever. So that was it for a long time. In 1950 or so, my dad politically wasn't getting along with the president and so on. He exiled himself, and we came to United States and stayed in Miami Beach. Then We were there 2 years. I started learning English a bit and so on. More important, I found out there was something called a spinning rod. In those days, the monofilament on the spinning rod was like wire. But I got involved in that. A couple of the young kids that fish along the seawall taught me about jigs and bouncing a jig off the bottom and hooking fish. And by the time I got back, my dad finally did whatever had to be done politically. In 1952, we were back, and now I was armed with a spinning rod. From there on, I mainly use a spinning rod. By the way, these days I still use a yo-yo with live bait sometime, and it's neat to fish with a hand line, but I started using a spinning rod, using lures, Zara spooks on the surface, et cetera, et cetera.
The game had changed.
The game had changed. It was a different world.
Yeah.
During those days, my father made connections with the government, and he found out that he could, through the connections, buy land that he knew a road was going to go through, and he did real well. So all of a sudden, we had chauffeurs, we had maids, we had cooks, we had everything. And with it, my dad bought a yacht. And with the yacht came a captain, an American captain. Why he chose an American, he didn't speak English, I don't know, but he liked this guy, and the guy spoke Spanish, obviously. When the guy showed up, he had an Orvis Batten Kill 9.5-footer with a GAF line, which was about an 8-weight. I got one. I got Dad to buy me one. I still have it, and it still casts pretty well with an 8-weight. You can still throw 80 feet if you know what you're doing. The loop
You
is
still
big.
have your first fly rod.
I still have it.
Wow.
I still have it. So anyway, I started fly fishing mainly because I saw the line in the air, and I became enamored. I'm a romantic at heart, and I just love that. I didn't stop spin fishing. I still do, and I like even more than spinning, bait casting, revolving spools. I like it a lot. But so there was no one fly fishing at the time. I was the first Cuban fly fisherman, as far as I could tell, and I was all over Cuba fishing. So I fly fished there for snook, and there are no fish like redfish or sea trout. Cuba is tropical. Miami is subtropical, and they still get redfish and sea trout. We didn't get that in Cuba. Snook, baby tarpon, some ladyfish, not many, and of course all the other jack crevalle and whatever else. So I fly fish there. I ended up going to Isla Pines and fly fishing for bonefish. The guys there didn't have much money in it. They had a decent wooden boat that didn't have an engine. And the way they did it is they rowed it a little bit in deep water, got to the flat, and they poled it. They weren't good at poling. So when they saw a bonefish, the best way was they step out of the boat and push the boat, and you had to say, no, wait a minute, too close, too far. He don't know anything. He's down on the water. But I thought that was so state-of-the-art at the time. You know, it was 1957, you know. Jerry Lee Lewis hadn't started singing yet. The killer wasn't around, man. But at any rate,
So this is the mid-50s.
this is late 57, 58.
Gotcha.
Like that. In December 31st, 1958, Batista left government overnight. We were at a party with all the money. I had raced my 190 Mercedes-Benz. My friend had a Ferrari. Life was good.
Life was good in 59.
Yeah, it ended that day, that afternoon. By 6 o'clock, January 1st, my dad was looking for a small airplane to leave. The whole world changed. We left all our possessions, everything else. A few months later, I didn't get out, and my mother didn't get out. A few months later, there was a ferry that went from from Havana to Key West. I got in it with my 190 SL Mercedes, my flower rod, my bat and kill, and my mother with all her Patek Philippe watches and baguette emeralds and all of that. We got to Key West, and I drove to Miami, and my dad was waiting there, and I never came back. I never went back. So when I got here, I fly fished. I started trying to see where to go. I didn't have a boat, of course. We wouldn't have a boat for quite a while. And a week or two, maybe 3 weeks roughly, I went to a fly shop called the Tackle Box. Not a fly shop, I'm sorry. A tackle store who had some fly rods.
This was in Miami.
In Miami.
A legendary place.
Huh?
Had been there for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I met who later became Captain Bill Curtis, very famous. Bill and I became friends, and we started talking, and I said, snook is my favorite fish. By the way, it still is. I could give you a long explanation, but the short explanation is his chemistry. I like that guy. That's the and he said, that's my favorite fish too. And we were talking. I said, I used to catch him in Cuba, and he had been to Cuba, I believe, with someone else. I forget the name now. But anyways, he said, I can find snook right now. I said, really? Yeah, in a place called the Tamiami Trail. I said, wow, okay. We could go right now. So he said, well, it's an hour and a half away, and it's mid-afternoon. We'd have to drive fast. And I said, I have a fast car outside.
I can help with that.
Yeah. So we got in the car, a two-seater, 4-speed manual, of course. And Bill was rigging his rod and rigging mine through the guys while I was driving. We were doing well over 100. And in the meantime, what Bill did from the store, he called a guy named, I can't think of his name right now, but he lived in Everglades City, and he knew where the snook may be crashing. We call them popping. And this day, I remember, was bridge number 50. The bridge is still there, number 50, everything's still there. So he knew we were going to bridge 50. Bridge starts around 74 or so numbers, and as you get away from Miami, it goes lower and lower until 39, and then it ends. Anyway, we stop at bridge 50, pow, 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 pow. The snook popping on the other side. He had little flies that imitated little minnows, tied out of deer hair. There were no artificial hair then. And we caught snook that day. I was in heaven, and for the next 25, 30 years, I fished that Tamiami Trail with Norman Duncan and Little John Emery and Flip Pallet. We fished it a lot. We didn't have a boat for a long time. So that started about 2 or 3 weeks later. I came in the store, and there was Flip Pallet wiggling a rod, He hadn't changed a bit. He looks just like that, except he's got a beard now. We made friends immediately. Soon I met Norman Duncan and Little John. And we were the only group there that I knew of young people that used spinning tackle, bait casting, and they started fly fishing. I was already fly fishing. So we couldn't afford the fly rods then. They were $60. I mean, you can go in 5, 6, 7 dates on $60. And that at the time was more important. But at any rate, but there were several places that you could buy blanks and guides, and the blanks were usually $6-7 for a fly rod blank. So we learned how to make our own rods, turn our own cork because the handle turned was too expensive. But we bought the rings, glued them, turn them on the lathe. You know, after all, we made plugs on the lathe. So we made all this equipment, and with that we started fishing.
So these years at the tackle box.
A long explanation for where you fly fishing, but I thought
No, it's an amazing story, and these were formative years. In fact, that group of individuals that you met and would spend time with at the Tackle Box retail shop there in Miami, you guys went on to kind of be known as the Four Musketeers.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
And you guys really pioneered not just a lot of the fishing in and around the Miami area, but as you said, you were building your own rods. You were faced with challenges on tackle, terminal tackle, gear setup, and you had to solve them because a lot of that stuff didn't exist.
Yeah, well, necessity is the mother of invention, I believe. We're the first people that made a clear fly line. As you may know, we took 200 or 300 pound monos, stretched it over two cloth drying poles. Those days they didn't use as many cloth drying machines. And then we sanded the line to the shape of a weight forward line.
You did a taper with sandpaper with a front loaded.
Front loaded and everything. Had I known better, the line wasn't that thick anyway. Leaving it as it was would have been more weight and would have loaded the line a little better, but we didn't know that. The reason we did that wasn't to be stealth. The fish were dumb at rocks. We didn't need stealth. The reason is that we found big 50, 80, 100, 120, 140 pound tarpon under the bridges. And at night, with the lights on, they sat on the facing the current, of course, on the shade of the bridge. And you see the shrimp coming in, and they move on, take it. And we would make a big fly and throw it up current on top of the bridge, of course, and let the fly come in. He would take the fly, we'd hook him, he'd make 2 or 3 jump, go under the bridge and break us off and take the fly line. The fly lines were $8 then. We couldn't afford to lose the fly line. It was all about the dating that we could do with the fly line, and that's a literal statement.
$8 went a long way, for sure. Well, did you guys realize at the time, Chico, that you were really kind of helping to shape the future of saltwater fly fishing? I mean, nobody was really doing it in those days in that area. You guys were very much at the forefront. Were you aware of that at the time, or were you guys just so fish obsessed you weren't thinking
Not
about
at all. Not at all. We made those lines, and of course you can imagine 200, 300 pound mono. If you reeled it in, once you made it into a fly line, in the reel, it'd come out like a spring, and you could never get it out. So it would never went in the reel. We made big, giant loops. Norman and I and Little John were pipe smoker. We had Comoys, straight grain, all kinds of very good pipes, calabash, and Flip didn't smoke. But we used the pipe cleaner, and we would hold the big loop and make 10 of those lines, or 15. And we would walk at night into that, in the bridge, with the big trucks passing by very close, because then the bridges were very small, very narrow.
Got to watch the backcast.
Oh, absolutely. You hook when you weren't going to stop it. Although I once hooked a Volkswagen Beetle, I didn't stop him either. It almost killed me. But at any rate, yeah, don't try to stop a Beetle, even with a 12 weight. But we would lose the fly line, and then we'd make a bimini or make a loop and loop in another fly line, and we'd lose 4 or 5, 6 lines. So It was just a cheap thrill. Chances of landing it were zero. I mean, we were up in the bridge and the fish came out. But that's how we came out with that. Later, around 1972, 74, 75, somewhere, I was starting to get enough of a name that I dealt with Scientific Angler, and I came up, several of us talked to them about making a clear line and so on. They couldn't make it very well. The core and the coating didn't stretch at the same way, and they'd come apart. And it was years before that would happen. I believe Stu App mentioned that too. He didn't make the lines with us. He was older and had more money. He actually had a boat and travel. We were a long ways from that. And I don't know if Flip later mentioned it to someone, but anyway, I mentioned Scientific Angler. Eventually, several fly line manufacturers started doing it poorly, and you know where we are now with them. You know, they're obviously much better, still with more memory that I like, but that's how we came up with that.
Well, fast forward to today, and decades of working in the fishing industry, Chico. You know, you've worked with so many legendary gear companies over the years, including Sage, Nautilus, Scientific Anglers, Hell's Bay, many others. What are you most proud of when it comes to the gear designs and some of the innovations you've been a part of, some of the contributions you've made that have really kind of changed the face of tackle and equipment in fly fishing?
Well, one of them would have to be that fly line for sure. Also, the design of the snapping shrimp, it won many tournaments. Some of them to a dear friend, Sandy Moret, and I would. I hope he has a good sense of humor when I mention this, but he got to where he couldn't compete without it. The thing, it just imitated a small shrimp very well.
This is one of your fly patterns. You did the snapping shrimp.
Yeah.
Legendary fly.
So he would say, Chico, we're 20 days away. I want to be able to try that fly. Yeah, no, I'll get it to you. I would get it to him 2 days before. He was just begging for it. Then I gave him the flies, you know. And Sandy became a great angler and won many tournaments and everything. But that fly was unique. It's still, some people use it.
Oh yeah.
Still
effective fly. Yeah.
Yes, very, very effective.
What do you think over the course of all these years, Chico, are some of the biggest breakthroughs, not necessarily that you've been a part of or helped in the design process, but just that you've witnessed in the sport of fly fishing in terms of rods, reels, lines, that kind of thing? What do you think have been some like game-changing moments along that process?
Well, one of them has to be the big arbor reels that Loop came out with. In the late 50s, early 70s, I made friends with Lee Wolf. I liked him a lot. I know that he was controversial and everything else, but he was straight, and I thought a lot. And he used to say, we fished Zenith. The Zenith, I caught tunas with the Zenith. How I could do that now, I don't know. But again, we didn't have a choice. And he would say, yeah, I know you like the Zenith, but that's very small, very wide. Chico, it's about a narrow drum. A spool, he called it a drum. Maybe that's what they call it in England. And he was saying narrow and big. He didn't know about having a hole through the middle that we didn't hold that line, but he already knew about fast retrieve. It took me a while to understand what he actually meant. He was pretty advanced.
Oh, yeah.
Very advanced. You know that at one time, I think Norman and I, but maybe Flip was involved in that. Flip, for a couple of years, he was in Peace Corps, so he wasn't with us and back. But anyway, probably him too. We checked the leader formulas. I'm very big on that. And anyway, We met Charles Ritz. He's 60, 20, 20, and blah, blah, blah.
All the formulas
yeah.
Yep, the leaders
and
together.
We looked and tried and tested how big the butt section should be. So eventually we realized that the Ande lines that we use so much, 40-pound worked well with an 8-weight and a 9-weight, and 40-pound with 24, 25, 26 thousandths of an inch. So we rounded down to 25 thousandths of an inch, which is good today to do that. And I thought I'd come over and teach Lee Wolf something. So I said, Norman and I and Flip, we've been checking and done extensive research, and I think we have the exact diameter after several years. He said, I'd be very interested. Since the late 40s, early 50s, I've always thought that something about 25 thousandths of an inch would be. And what did you find out? 25,000. Yeah, good. He knew about that 25 years before, but he pushed the envelope on everything.
Yeah,
he pushed
some big evolutions for sure. Well, along with your contributions to gear design and innovation, you've also been known for decades as a fabulous teacher in this sport, and you've taught fly fishing to thousands of people over the years. What's your favorite part of teaching, of that process?
Probably two of them. One is teaching the art of fly casting to where a student finally can make a loop, form a loop. It's a big deal. Until you form a loop, you're not casting yet. It's not that you're casting poorly, you're not casting. When they finally get the loop and see it, I get a big kick out of that. But beyond that, I always inject conservation. One way or another, we need that badly. And I find, and I'm so glad of this, that at least maybe because fly fishermen are philosophically come to the sport in a different mindset, it's kind of nice that everyone I've taught that through almost 50 years takes it on real well, understand it, and participates immediately. I say, today you can't afford to embrace the sport and not be a member of several organizations, BTT, IGFA, Captains for Clean Water. After all, it's $50 a year or something. You couldn't buy a flyland today. Well, we got flylands over $150, so that would cover a year of 3 of those organizations. And everybody goes and buy them. When the guy comes in and he's, like I had the other day, a fellow had a new Bentley turbo, which I happen to like, the turbo on the Bentley. I just thought I had that. And I said, and $50 is for people that come in, but say you wanted to leave 1,000 or 2,000, I think it's nice to do, and he did. He left more money. But I like that part. I enjoy it, and I believe on it to the core of my soul.
Well, and this has always been a sport where when people do, as you mentioned, find their way to fly fishing, there is a very strong ethos of being involved in protecting and speaking out for the places that matter. I mean, our sport, everything we love about fly fishing is intricately linked, obviously, to all these places. And you have to speak up and speak out and fight for the protection and the preservation of these resources, because we don't have the luxury of turning a blind eye to these things.
No.
If those resources aren't there, we no longer have a sport. It's that simple.
No. It's going to be an eternal fight to the core, because the big money is usually on something, on polluting, on destroying the area.
Yeah. Dredging, extracting, mining, whatever it is. That's where the big money is.
Really no exception. And the most amount of pollution doesn't come from the canoes that we pull or the flat skiff that has a small engine, relatively speaking. It comes from the guy that got 4 engines on a big cigarette-type boat. And I wish that they would see it a bit different, because I find that these guys, I get it, the girls in the bikini, and I've done all of that, I get it. But they run 30 miles someplace and 30 miles back and 30 miles. You can do that with the 2 engines. What are you doing at that speed? And there's been some bad accidents, guy doing 80 and 100 miles an hour on the water, which is like doing 200 on an automobile. But at any rate, yes, it's going to be an eternal fight, and I know it is.
Yeah, constant, diligence, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, along with decades of casting instruction, you've also spent a lifetime refining your understanding of fish behavior. What specific fish species, Chico, has taught you the most over the years, if you had to pick one?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coming up this November 4th through the 9th, join Yellow Dog Fly Fishing for an experience unlike any other. One-of-a-kind Belize Bluegrass Week at El Pescador Lodge. This incredible couples trip blends world-class saltwater fishing with nightly concerts featuring Grammy-winning bluegrass artists and top-tier pickers from across the U.S. We're talking serious talent, great flats fishing, and a private Caribbean venue. Guided fishing and non-angling activities during the day, and exceptional bluegrass music under the stars. A few spots remain open, and we'd love to have you there with us. For more information, give us a call, 406-585-8667, or email Matt at yellowdogflyfishing.com.
My favorite still the snook. Like I said before, I could tell you that he has surface flies. The way he pops the surface is a certain pop that's different from any other fish, and he can jump and shake his head, and with a large mouth, like a largemouth bass, he can inhale a popper. All of this, but I've come to the conclusion that it's chemistry. I like the fish. I've caught him in freshwater with black bass. I've caught him totally freshwater on the beaches, but I love the brackish water, which is where he belongs most, with the wading birds and the crocodiles and the bromelias and the orchids, and my favorite tree, the red mangrove. I love that world, and I love his neighborhood, and I like to hang out in it. It's really good.
Quite an ecosystem. No doubt.
But as far as reading a big bonefish, bonefishing is one thing. Catching a 3, 4, 5 pound bonefish, it'll get in your backing with a 7 weight, great. When the fish is over 30 inches, that 10, 11, 12 pound fish is a different animal. And you can see the fish coming sometimes in the Miami area and look and just know he's not going to take the fly. He's just nervous. I can feel all the time he comes in and he's happy, Mary had a little lamb, blah, blah, blah. And he can take the fly. And you can see it in the way he moves, how relaxed he is, et cetera, et cetera. I like being able to read that guy. I don't read permit as well, but I haven't spent as much time on permit. I've caught a lot of them, but not like bone fishing. As a matter of fact, even today, I'm guilty of fishing the permit world, looking for something that I like more, which is mutton snapper.
Well, we often talk on this program about how a lot of the best anglers, certainly the most effective, consistent anglers, are really dialed into being able to read what fish are doing, the behavior, the movement, their attitude. You can go on to describe it several different ways, but being able to read fish is an incredibly important skill to being a top-tier angler.
Yeah, and it's hard to teach it per se. Two things: reading the fish. Do fish when you're teaching in a school. Reading the fish and being able to retrieve in such way that you can talk them into taking the fly. You need more time on the water for that. You can't, you can't just tell them, move it this way or move it that way. You read his reaction. Sometimes you see it and he's after, but he doesn't, and you speed up and he eats it. Other time you speed up and say, I'm not want to follow. And you go, oh, God, I blew it. Those two things you can. But before anything else, and before buying the best tackle and whatever else you buy, you got to learn how to cast. That's the quintessential skill. And the angler has to realize that this is not something to learn, an obstacle to overcome in order to catch a fish. I don't know any fly fishing friends of mine that don't love to cast. Period.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I'll be casting a new rod or a new line in the Keys somewhere, and Sandy or Flip or Fordyce or any of those guys, Tejera, will come by. Hey, Chico, what are you casting? Well, I have this new. Let me try it out. He's cast 1 million rods already, but he wants to try it out. Why? Because he loves casting.
Yeah, you got to love it.
Oh,
absolutely.
you got to love it.
I mean, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
Well, I want to pivot for a second because I know how much you love casting, the fluidity of a well-presented line, that loop you talked about a moment ago. Another thing that you are well known for, your love of, is jazz and your music. How do you see the connection between jazz and fly fishing, especially when it comes to things like rhythm, improvisation, feel, tempo? Do you ever make those comparisons?
Yes. I started listening to jazz before I really spoke English. A cartoon that had a big crate that fell off a ship and crashed in the shore, and one of the natives comes in and starts to play boogie woogie. And I love the rhythm and I love the improvisation. Later learn out that improvisation is really a blues. You're improvising on a diminishing fifth on a blues. And from there, I liked it so much, I kept trying to find more. In Cuba, hardly no one knew jazz from nothing. I listened to Glenn Miller thinking I was listening to jazz and so on. But eventually, I learned about Miles and Coltrane and all of that. And since then, I've been listening to it. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a fan of Benny Goodman. I play clarinet trying to find out more about it. Lucky for me, I spent quite a bit of time and got to know Dizzy Gillespie, and I spent time with Diz, who was a wonderful gentleman, a wonderful guy. Anyway, so how do I do fly fishing? The improvisation of jazz, you never know sometimes you're improvising and it just comes and the closest thing I can think of in fly fishing is sight casting. You're there, it could be a 50, 60-foot cast you need at 11 o'clock, or it could be a 10-foot cast at 9 o'clock or at 3 o'clock, real quick, which is the hardest cast because there's hardly any weight to load the rod. Most of it is leader and so on. That is the closest thing I can say. When you're blind casting, I love blind casting to a shoreline, but you're relaxing, rhythm, accuracy is all fun, but the sight casting is very quick and it could be anywhere. That's the closest thing to jazz that I can think of.
Improvisation.
Yeah, and that has to be improvised. I mean, you sometimes you'll be fishing with your friend and and snook come out in an area that's hard. You got to make a back cast, and you put it on, and you hook it, and you take a picture, and you're smiling. Someone that doesn't know, we said, Jim, it's a 5-pound snook. I mean, what the heck are you laughing? I've seen you catch 12-pounder. Yeah, but this guy appeared here, and I had to make a back up. And that's why. Maybe later in the day you use a slow sinking line and you caught a bigger snook, and it was fun and everything, but it wasn't that guy in a foot of water, gin clear.
I love it. I love it. Well, we started our conversation, Chico, by talking about how you were born in Havana, spent a lot of your early years in Manzanillo in Cuba. The family later left Cuba in the wake of the revolution. I'm curious, what does Cuba mean to you today? How do you carry all that from your early years with you today? And that's a big question, I know.
I miss Cuba a lot. I missed it a lot. What can I tell you? I love United States, but Cuba is the woman that buried me, you know. And United States brought me up and everything, but you can't forget her.
That seems to be a common theme with a lot of Cuban families that had left in those years.
Yeah.
Well, these days, Cuba is definitely seen by many anglers as one of the most kind of exotic and desirable saltwater fishing destinations. You see it all over fishing media, as you mentioned, videos, films, bonefish, tarpon, permit, largely unpressured flats. As someone who fled the island at a time that must have just been chaotic, how do you process the fact that it has become such a bucket list destination for modern anglers?
I don't like it. And many of my friends go, you know, clients, but your clients become friends. If it really, it's just that it's the way it is. So, and some of them don't understand that, well, we got there and we got a prime rib and we got, you know, palomilla steak. Those people haven't seen a prime rib, you know, since the 50s. They don't understand how bad it is because they go to the main hotel there, and then they go to the Jardines de la Reina, the garden, the Queen's Garden, in a big boat. They don't see anything, any of that.
That's not the real Cuba.
Oh, 1% of that. They get into black market because they're hungry, so they trade 4 avocados for a chicken, and then they, you know, I can't even tell you how.
Well, if someone today asked for your thoughts and guidance before booking a trip to Cuba, they wanted to go there, they wanted to experience it and fish there, what advice would you have for them, or what would you say to them?
Well, I can't really advise them because I don't like it going there. I just don't, you know.
Do you think, Chico, that fly fishing and travel in general can ever be a bridge for improvement or greater understanding in some of these areas, even in places with complex or complicated histories?
Well, in Cuba, it won't be. The people there, first of all, I can talk to you long about Castro because my father knew him, but he's gone, and all those people are going. This is like third generation, a cousin of a cousin or something. They didn't fight for that anyway, and they just got that. And fly fishing, or it brings money, and you know, money talks, and so this thing continues. But my heart isn't in it at all.
Well, let's talk about some other destinations. Yeah. Over the years, you've been fortunate enough to have fished so many of the world's legendary waters, from Tierra del Fuego to the Amazon, the Yucatan, I think the Indian Ocean. When you think back on these journeys, these angling journeys, what is it that truly stays with you about these experiences? Is it the fish? Is it the place? Is it something less tangible? Talk to us a little bit about some of the amazing adventures you've had.
One of the things I enjoyed, and I experienced it on the Marie River and in the Single River
in Brazil.
In Brazil, the fishing was good. I got a payada on one, a big payada on a popper, which was great, and I got a 20-pound peacock bass on the Marie River with an 8-foot rod. and, all of that. Love it. In the Marie River, once I did that and caught a few more fish, a few days, I wanted to go for a hike it's not a jungle, it's a rainforest, in the rainforest. And I had been fishing and casting against the shoreline, as you generally do for the pickup. And the forest is 10 feet high or 14 feet high because we're fishing in low water so that the fish are gathered, And they said, okay, but we're going to have to help you get up all the way up there. Yep. They help me. I get in there. I take 5 steps, and it's another planet. 70, 80, 100, 140, 150-foot trees. A silence that was unbelievable. Cooler in there than it was. And you start walking. If it was a jungle, you couldn't walk too far because the trees are not as high. The sun gets to the floor, and walking 100 feet it takes forever. But on a rainforest, the trees are so high that the sun doesn't touch the floor, and therefore the whole floor is just a carpet of small leaves. So you can walk fairly well. It may go up and down 5 or 10 feet. I used a walking stick, but you can walk, and it was like meditation. One of the things I do to start young, and because I love to do it like I love fly casting, is I do Tai Chi. I've done it and this was like, and Tai Chi, they say, is meditation in movement and like that. It is in many ways. Well, this was the same. This was like meditation, walking through there. That was more significant than the fish, and the fish was a biggie. The fight was brutal. The peacock bass fights more stronger than a snook by far. So it was an exciting. This stays on my mind much more. That
walk through the rainforest.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Then when I went to the single river, I did the same thing. I wanted to do that. And several of the people wanted to do that, but they got ready to go. And I had problems with my stomach. I couldn't go, so they went. My son came with me, so he went on the group, and I stayed in bed. I had a day and a half that didn't feel good, but then I got fine. So I told Rodrigo, listen, it's a big deal for me to go. And we'll get someone. The way the forests are there, they say, and I believe it, you walk 200-300 feet, you're lost. It's unbelievable. So they get a guide that's been there for a very long time. He's not good enough. He's just there to translate because a native comes with you. And believe me, I could not understand. It wasn't English or Spanish or better Portuguese. No.
No, it's a dialect no one else speaks.
Nothing. On top of that, I was lucky enough that there was a young redheaded lady that is an anthropologist, and she was working there, came out of the jungle, and she offered to come also and help. So the 4 of us went, and I walked, I think it was almost 2.5, 3 miles. It took 4 hours to go and come back. That's about all I could do. But it was magic. And we went through little creeks and ferns and bromeliads that were 6 feet high, and of course all the big trees. That again was that was a big deal, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people equate destination angling with chasing exotic species, visiting a far off place, but ultimately about going and catching fish. And we often talk about how it's possible to find meaning beyond the fish, right? And with these places, especially when you go off to a foreign land, an exotic land, it's the language, the culture, the unfamiliar rhythms, but also the ecosystems.
The ecosystem. And the people, I mingled a bit with the people that live there. Wonderful, wonderful people. Very polite, and they live so basic. And you expect that, but still when you see it, dirt floors and everything else. I've done that in many places. I have never met any of those individuals that's not happy. Yeah. They don't have a BMW, okay? And forget all the expensive car and so on. They're just happy.
Yeah. Simple life. Do you think, Chico, that people today are in too much of a hurry when it comes specifically to fly fishing? They're about chasing the moment versus embracing the journey?
Oh, I think absolutely so. I have a little saying that I tell my students. I know you want to catch a fish, and if you caught a few, you want to catch a big fish and a world record and whatever. You can't live for the moment of the strike alone, or you miss practically everything that fly fishing was about. Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I love the story about the Marié and the Xingu and the walk in Brazil. Tell me about another destination that you feel has fundamentally changed you, not just from an angling experience or an on-water experience, but your takeaways from visiting that area or that foreign country has changed you and left a mark with you.
Well, I don't know that this is the answer you're looking for, but my favorite place in the world is still the Everglades. And I have hiked it, and I canoe a lot, and I have a canoe that I've had for 30 years.
Beautiful. I'm looking at a picture of a canoe. Describe this canoe that you're showing me this photo of.
Okay. Several 100 years, 200-300 years ago, the canoes were made either from bark and eventually for wood and canvas. And they were made, as I said, were made years ago, double-ended. That means a point on each side, no engine, nothing like that. The typical canoe, the proportions haven't changed in hundreds of years, 16, 17 feet by 36, 37, 38 inches. This one happens to be 16 by 36. Well, this is the same thing, but it's fiberglass with the wooden ribs and everything else. It's a beautiful canoe, but it's infinitely more than that. I've had it 31 years now. I've caught 1 million fish with it. I pulled it hundreds of miles through the years. It just works. And all that wood makes it very, very quiet. So quiet that when I pull the canoe, my son, who's my favorite guy to fish, and whose favorite rod, he's caught all the big fish and small and 3 weight and 8 weight, is a 7 weight. That's it. And he has an 8.5 foot 7 weight because we get so close that a 9-footer, you're not quite as accurate. It's amazing how close you get to the fish. These days, at 85 years old, I get on that canoe with a couple of push poles. I bring a 10.5, 11, and a 13-footer, and I can still pull it 3-4 miles and cover a lot of ground. And what's so good about it is I launch it in areas that you couldn't physically launch a boat. Other areas would be illegal to launch a boat. And you get in a dirt road somewhere in the Everglades, you launch it, and immediately you're in the wilderness completely. There's no one there. Most of the places you in theory could get there from the bay, poling toward the shallower area, but it would take you 2 or 3 days. And some areas you couldn't get a flatboat there. So out of 20 trips, I might see someone there on a kayak, on a canoe, And out of those, seldom are they fishing. When I pull that canoe, I can get very close to wildlife. I don't know, they feel it that you're not about to jump on plane. I don't know what it is that looked at you and, I love that. And I do that in the Everglades, and it's magic. The red mangrove, the black mangrove, the bromelia, the buttonwood, et cetera, it's magic. And then the fishing, of course. But sometimes the fishing isn't good. Maybe the saltwater intrusion hasn't come in enough, and there are not many fish, and you can't get on plane and go anywhere. But you know what? We keep polling and looking, going through mangrove tunnels. You know, I got a couple of big Cuban sandwiches, submarine sandwiches, and that's it. On the way back, maybe a Yangling beer, and life is good.
It's not about the fish. It's about where you are.
So the Everglades, yes, it's still my favorite, and I don't think that's going to change.
Well, you are in your mid-80s now, Chico, still casting, still canoeing, still exploring, obviously still fishing, still traveling.
Oh, yeah.
What keeps you going? What still keeps you so excited and motivated?
You know, I'm a fly fisherman, and I have a passion for fly fishing. The most exciting by far is when I come up with another way to tie a leader, to make a cast, another approach, a new area that I find fish. The learning is the most exciting, by far.
And that never ends.
And that never ends. And I tell you what, as one get old, you'd be smart to listen to some of the young guys that are maybe have only 10 or 15 years in fly fishing, and they'll come up since they have a different mindset, and they're not set on their ways as we are when we get old. Sometimes they'll come up with something, and I hadn't thought of that, and it was right there. I'm excited to learn that. I don't feel bad because he's younger. Everybody seems to be younger than me today, so I don't mind. No, the learning, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And you start to become, I carry less equipment. I go fishing a long way somewhere, and I got a 7 and a 9 weight, and I can catch 100-pound tarpon and fish for bass in a pond with a 7 and a 9. I like that basic. That's why I like the canoe. It's so basic. I'm about ready to trade or stop using my Hell's Bay Professional, which is wonderful. Floats in 6.5 inches of water, doesn't use much fuel, because it's getting harder to pole, and I can't climb up anymore. I could with a bar, and I have the bar, but I don't. So I'm going to get a Hell's Bay Eldora. You familiar with it? Okay. It's simply, folks, it's simply a flats boat as you know it. Okay. Take away the center console, take away the wheel, take away the hatches, take away everything. And the same boat that has a 70 now can use a 25 and a tiller. It floats in less than 4 inches of water, and I can pull it all day. And approaching fish with that is deadly. On a calm day, you can't beat it. So I'm going back to more basic, less and less. I have less and less in the house, and I'm happier for it.
Simplifying,
for sure, for sure.
Well, Chico, you've been at this a long time. You've influenced generations of anglers, no question about it. What does the concept of legacy mean to you?
Something you have to learn, but it means to me, hopefully, more than, you're well known and all of that jazz. It means more to me that I've helped. The world records are fun. They're fun, like winning a tournament. They're fun. It's all-you-can-eat restaurant, but it's not dining.
I like that. It's not dining. Well, let me ask you, if you could go back and give your 19-year-old self, that Cuban kid who had just come to the States, was walking into the tackle box for the very first time at 19, if you could give that kid one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would give him 4 words: in learning, in helping, and the 4 words would be, there is no magic. You want to play clarinet like Benny Goodman? He practiced every day, including Hanukkah and Christmas. His wife would say, but it's Hanukkah. No, Hanukkah starts at noon. I got to practice so many hours. The people that cast so well, they've cast 1 million times. That's why they cast better than you. There's no push button. You can't buy the cast. There is no magic. Go to work.
There is no magic. Put in the work.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
In fishing as in life.
In fishing as in life, for sure.
Yeah. Well, last question for you, Chico, as we wrap up. What's the best advice you ever received about fishing, life, or both over your many years of being in this industry, over the places that fishing has taken you, all the people you've interacted with, and all the friends you've shared a boat with or fished with? What's one piece of advice that really sticks out to you that you've learned from someone else?
You know, I don't remember someone mention one that was, but we go back to there is no magic. Some of my heroes that I follow, how they cast or the tackle they brought or the boat they used, it was always, there was no magic. You learned how to pull very well. You learned how to do this very well. It was always the very basic. One of my heroes is Steve Hoff. He still fishes with a boat that has nothing. He's now using a Chittum. I've been in it. I got a 20-pound snook with it just a few years ago with him. It has nothing. It has the smallest engine, and then a little cooler and nothing. But with it, he floats higher than anyone else. He still pulls at many mile basics. And the people, including Lee Wolf, again, you know, very basic, very little flies, very few. In essence, that would be it, rather than one thing that they don't.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. It's amazing how well you do when you do that.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Well, Chico, thank you so much. This has been great. It's been wonderful hearing your story and your advice and so many great life lessons learned. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Appreciate your time. And that is it for this episode of Waypoints. Be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com to plan and research trips, source gear, equipment, and flies for your next destination, learn about upcoming podcast episodes, and stay up to date and dialed in on the latest news in fly fishing, travel, and adventure. Join us for our next episode, and remember, keep fishing and keep traveling, because when it's all said and done, no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing, travel, and adventure angling. Waypoints is produced by Brian Gregson and written by Jim Klug. Music is written and provided by bluegrass legend Woody Platt. Audio engineered by Sean McCormick. Visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more location profiles, destination information, travel news, and the industry's best selection of flies and equipment for destination angling.